The classroom diagnostic tool is reliable, valid, and correlated. Let's talk a little bit about correlation, for some background knowledge. There can be a positive correlation where there is a relationship between two things that are being compared, and you'll see a positive upward slope. There can be a negative correlation where the two things being compared, one increases and one decreases, creating this negative correlation. There could be no correlation. It looks more like that scatter plot on the far right. So the correlation between the CDT and the Keystone exams is a frequent question. On the screen in front of you, you can see for each year that the CDT had a Keystone aligned course, there are correlation scores. And as you look down on the right-hand side, you'll see that they range from 0.74 all the way up to 0.804 for biology in 2013-14. But there is a consistent pattern of 0.7 or better for the Keystone aligned CDT scores. Let's look at the PSSA exams and how they correlate. You'll notice that these are by grade level and subject area, and this would be since the CDT was aligned to the PA core standards, and the correlation scores will range from 0.77 to 0.85, I believe is the highest. Those are the elementary, grade 3 through 5 CDTs, and here are the middle school. And again, we're seeing very similar correlation scores where we have a 0.76 all the way up to a 0.86. Now, 1-to-1 would be a perfect correlation. So as we're looking at these scores that range from a 0.7 to a 0.86, those are strong correlations. Because there is not an open-ended, there cannot be a 1-to-1 correlation. So these scores are very high. Validity is another measure of an assessment, and it shows that the assessment actually measures what it's supposed to measure. And to be able to be valid, a test assessment must also be reliable. So we're going to look at those two definitions. In the CDT, this happens to be a CSV file that I have extracted, and there's a built-in standard error check for that validity piece. I have highlighted in the columns here the overall score standard error and the diagnostic category standard error. We know the expected ranges for the overall score for all three subject areas, math, science, and reading. It should be in the 40s for the standard error. And for the diagnostic categories for English language arts, it should be in the 90s. For math and science, they should be in the 70s. And there's some variance there. I will go as high as 15 points from 70 to 85, say, for math and science reporting categories, and feel confident that the student is answering questions and staying within the expected standard error range. Other assurances for validity include high quality items. Does the assessment measure what it's supposed to measure? So this is a look at CDT assessment items, and what you are seeing in the green highlighted ribbon there is if the student was taking a grade 3 math CDT, they answered 30 of the whole group of 21,000 students, 21,339 students, 31% of the questions, 37.1% of the questions were at the third grade level. 28.5% of the questions were at second grade, and 32.5% of the questions at fourth grade. Very few at any other grades. That's exactly what's supposed to happen. When a student begins a course, such as third grade math, they may not know all the third grade content. They may be answering questions of the second grade content, but they also may know more toward the end of the year and moving into that fourth grade content. So it is expected that the majority of the questions fall within the grade level that is tested, as well as one grade level above and below. And that's what you see exactly here in this graphic. You can see that also in the individual learning progression report. The student was a 7th grade math student, and you can see that is in the gray band here, and they were asked questions at the 6th grade, 7th grade, and 8th grade level. One grade level above and below the grade level that they're currently in. Another aspect of validity are the depth of knowledge of the questions. Content committees review the questions for quality, for clarity, standard alignment, grade level appropriateness, as well as there is a bias, fairness, and sensitivity committee reviewing each and every question. So in the life of an item, whether it's a PSSA item, a Keystone exam item, or a CDT item, this flowchart is followed, and there is a review that happens for every single item, and the committees either accept it or pass it on. Also, in the check for validity, there is a standardization process as well as field testing. So standardization includes this life of the item field chart. After the item review committee has approved the item, it goes on to field testing, and they look to see how that item performs in field testing. Range finding is conducted to look at the data on how students performed on that, and they review the data and make another decision. Do we keep this item or does it get rejected? Also, with standardization, the way the test is administered to students, there are allowable accommodations just as there are on the PSSA and the Keystone exams. For example, you can use audio to have the students listen to or have the test read to them for math and science, but not for ELA content. Reliability is another test of an assessment, and it measures the degree to which an assessment tool produces stable and consistent results. So does the CDT produce stable and consistent results? Absolutely. This chart happens to highlight grades 3 through 5 reading, and the reliability scores. You can see in the red what they look like and how they begin to flatten out on this chart as the number of items is increased. And for our full battery CDT, there are anywhere from 10 to 15 items for our reading diagnostic categories. In math, you'll see 10 to 12, but you see as we get to that number 15, the reliability begins to flatten out. And that means that they are consistently producing the results that are expected. Here is the math version, and it's a different form of chart where the numerical look rather than a graphic look at it. But you can see in the pattern for the total CDT, the number is 0.936. And that because there are 50 to 60 items that are taken into consideration for that reliability calculation. And then for each of the categories in math, numbers and operations, there are 10 to 12 items. And look at the reliability, it's a 0.797. And it remains consistent across those categories because each of the reporting categories has an average number of items, which is going to range between 10 and 12. So the CDT is correlated to the state assessments. It is a valid and reliable assessment tool.